Thank you for coming. So just to give you a little background, we're the Inventors Association of Manhattan, and we are here to help inventors, entrepreneurs, startups of all kinds learn anything and everything, dare I say everything, I guess, but about launching your product safely, successfully, sorting out a lot of the noise out there about how to get something off the ground without spending the wrong money on the wrong things at the wrong time. So we believe in education and empowerment and networking for inventors, startups, and entrepreneurs of all kinds. And our monthly meetings, like the one tonight, we have a speaker who we hope is a great thought leader of something relating to inventorship. And that's the first half of the meeting. We will then break for a little while, and then we have what we call pitching panel, which is our version of Shark Tank without the drama and the money. So, and the purpose there is to, we have a great entrepreneur this evening, Rick, who's going to present his idea, and it's for the purposes of collaborative feedback and some exposure for him also.
Do you have to, does that have to be protected by a patent to be?
So as most people think, sometimes it's best to have a patent, but depending upon what your strategy is, having a patent or not may or may not be the right thing for you. I'd urge anyone who's thinking about pitching to speak to an IP attorney and make your own judgment. We do want to make sure you know that it's a public disclosure, so we can't guarantee that.
But anybody can pitch?
Well, we want them to be the right fit for the group. You know, somebody should be well prepared, and we've coached people through that process. So, and you have pitched, and did you find it useful?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great. Here's your $5. No, but you did, right? And I think everyone loved seeing your idea.
Oh,
and,
thank you. Thank you so much.
And I've been threatening that we're going to have an all-stars of pitching panel, because we've had over the past 2 years some great presenters, and it's good to revisit and see where they are and how what we, oh, actually Michael pitched also, right? And was it useful for you, Michael?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Okay. And your product is in market now? It's in store? Great. So this evening, are we ready to go yet?
I'm almost there.
Okay. So I'm just back from Atlanta myself. I was down there for a show called the NACS, the National Association of Convenience Stores. And, all right, quick quiz. Does anyone know how many convenience stores there are in the country?
25,000.
You're way low. Anyone else? 144,000 plus, which is an amazing figure, yeah. And everyone from all the tobacco companies are there, to the food companies, to electronic gadgets, and it was a very vibrant show, and seeing what could be launched in that channel of distribution is great. But the reason I'm mentioning it is I saw a few startups, and the key is they recognize that to launch, it's important to have a sense of brand, it's important to have a sense of the channels you're going after, and you know, unfortunately for a lot of people it means you have to spend a little bit of money. But they had a lot of foot traffic, they had exposure they wouldn't have had if they didn't go out to the show. And the key is, that I would just like to mention is, no matter what category you're in, there's always an important trade show for your category, and to look that up and see, because it's a great way to learn the market, and then when you're ready to launch, participate by being at those trade shows. Let's see, another announcement. Next month we have another great speaker lined up. We have the Community Outreach Coordinator for Indiegogo. And if some of you know, Indiegogo is the second largest crowdfunding platform. And they are pretty big themselves, and they've been growing quickly. And we have her coming to speak to you about issues associated with crowdfunding. By the way, Jenny, thank you very much for setting that up. One of our members, Jenny Halliday, made an introduction. That was really nice of you. So they're excited to come and speak, and it should be good, because I think every meeting that we've hosted this year, people are asking, what should I do about crowdfunding? It sounds like a great thing, and I want to launch that way. But there are a lot of pitfalls too, and they're coming to speak to us about what's good to know about crowdfunding. And we're still coming along. So this evening, yes? Oh, thank you. You doing okay, guys? Yes. Okay, we're almost there. Stretching. Also,
Tell a joke or something.
I don't know any jokes. Actually, and Gordon, thank you for reminding me, our association is supported by many professional sponsors, some of which are here tonight, and they are companies that we've vetted, and we feel that they can provide solid support, understand the independent inventor, and look to make their offerings inventor-friendly. With that, I'd like to introduce Gordon Perry. He's one of our independent members, excuse me, professional members.
Thank you, thank you. Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you very much. You all know me, Gordon Reynolds Perry, most of you do at least. I'm an industrial designer. I like working with entrepreneurs and startups. It gives me great joy. And I'm very good at helping people who have even just ideas in their head to bring them to the place where you can get it ready for the marketplace. So I do design, development, engineering, all the things you may need to bring your product to market. I encourage you to give me a call. I'm right down in Greenwich Village. I'd be happy to see you and talk to you about your product or your invention, and thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. David Postalski from Day Pitney.
Hi, everybody. I took the seat all the way in the back. That's where lawyers should be, right? All the way in the back. I am an intellectual property attorney with Day Pitney. We're a firm that's located in 10 states, Washington, D.C., New York, New Jersey. What I want to stress to you all is that, as you know, it's a very expensive process, but what Day Pitney tries to do is offer a flat fee and very low prices for startups and entrepreneurs. So we have a lot of clients that we care about what happens to you, and we offer very low rates and kind of very unique fee structures and stuff like that. So if you have any questions about the process, the patent process, let me know. I'm also a trademark and copyright attorney, so I'm happy to help in any way I can. Thanks.
Thank you, David. And our esteemed host, Louis Del Judas from Troutman Sanders, who is trying to also be an esteemed technical guru.
I'm not only a partner here, but I am IT.
Thank you, Louis.
I got it now. You got it together? I'm hoping.
Thank you all for being patient. So let me give you a little introduction about our speaker. I think you read her bio and you saw the meeting announcement. So Bea Arthur, who, as many of you know, was on Shark Tank last year. I found her presentation very inspiring in terms of building a brand and really the message about communicating what your product is all about is very important for inventors and startups. So I thought that some of the learnings that she had in starting her business would be great for you, and I'm sure you'll all have some questions about her experience on the show and what she's found, some of the challenges, and I think tips and tricks to launch more successfully. And what we're trying to do is show her segment from Shark Tank first, and then we can get into...
Thank you, that's very nice. So this is actually a really good example of not taking too many people's advice. The main thing that happened to me when I went into this was that I had a lot of tech people. You know, the startup scene right now is really like overflowing with money, and a lot of people had a lot of advice about how best to approach. The 3 of the 5 sharks are software and tech investors. So they're just like, no matter what, don't admit that you don't have a CTO. You know, one of the reasons that we weren't able to hold on to our clients in the first year was because we had really buggy code. The video didn't work, which was the main purpose of our scheduling functions, just didn't work. So we were basically in beta the first year. But you have producer coaches that are there, and they also tell you, don't use too many technical terms. So beta is a tech term that means just you're testing. So like, don't say that. So, but what they also don't tell you is that 5 people are going to be asking you a lot of questions at the same time. And so even if you have an explanation where you might not get to say, I never got to say what I was asking for the money for, and what I needed was, I needed to hire a lead engineer. At the time, I am a non-tech entrepreneur, and I was always outsourcing code, and I was working on like a $38,000 salary and giving all my money to code that wasn't always consistent. So anyways, I wasn't able to say any of that. There was a lot that I did say, but either way, this is just a really good example of theory versus application. You can have all the numbers in the world. Customer acquisition costs, I didn't spend a dime on marketing. We've been completely word of mouth most of the time that we've been in business. So yeah, so that's how it went. It wasn't my day, but I actually don't reference this experience a lot because it was literally 1 hour of my life, and we've been in market. That's another thing that was weird about that. We've been in business not even 3 full years. We launched in February of 2011. So it's 1 hour of my life that's not representative of my business. So now I get into my speech because I have a joke. As you can see from the clip, my name is Bea Arthur, and despite what that clip would have you believe, I am a smart and capable businesswoman. So, so that was my intro. So anyways, as I was saying, we launched in February 2011, and since then we have been averaging several thousands of dollars in monthly recurring revenue each month. I've tripled my staff. I've been seen in Entrepreneur Magazine. This month I'm going to be in Marie Claire Magazine, and just this Friday I was voted one of the top.
I saw you in Entrepreneur.
Did you? Oh yeah, that was a few years. That was before I went on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So again, I've been doing all this on my own. And I was just on Friday voted one of the top CEOs to follow on Twitter by The Muse, which is a big site for women in their 20s and 30s. And I've done it all with no team, no funding, and no background in tech. So I really wanted to talk to, because this is definitely a common experience.
Are you a therapist?
I am a therapist. That's how I came up with the company. So yeah, I went to Columbia for counseling and clinical psychology, and I graduated in 2008. And I've worked with domestic violence victims, addicts in recovery, and just one of the things that I saw consistently was how much people needed therapy, but how little they had access to it. And more importantly, how embarrassed people still were about it. So I wanted to embrace the stigma, make it more of a therapy light, create a different conversation about counseling, and more importantly, make it anonymous and accessible and affordable by putting it online. That's where all our other dark secrets are anyway, the internet. So, but the real struggle in the first year was that I wanted to start a counseling company, but I ended up running a tech platform. Again, with no experience, and most of your money, especially if you have a startup, goes to the development and engineering costs. So that said, it has been very difficult bootstrapping, but, and you see this all the time with companies that get tons and tons of funding, they're still closed within a year, even with a $2 million raise, because they're not going to get creative about how to get traction, how to get customers. And so I've tried literally everything, and so I'm going to talk about what has been the best and what I focused on. And so, I don't remember how to get to my presentation, but it's not a big deal. It really doesn't look that cool anyway. So don't worry about it. I'm just going to go from here. So as far as how to build a string brand, the 3 things that I keep coming back to. Oh, there it is. That's why. Well, the 3 things that I keep coming back to that seem to work best when you focus your efforts on it are identity, scalability, and visibility. And I think it's kind of cyclical, you'll definitely come back to these things, but identity, when you're first trying to make a big splash and introduce yourself to the market and get clients. Scalability, when you're trying to gain traction and prove yourself to investors, because you're still early stage even after you've launched. And visibility, when you want to maintain the momentum. So those are the 3 key things that I'm going to talk about, how they work and how best to strategize with them. Oh, there it is. It's really totally fine. It's just pictures. It's fine. I'll just go to my website. Okay. Don't worry. Thanks, Lou. Right? My real host would have been to be a karaoke host or something like that. So this will be a good background anyway for video. I don't know how to make it. It's fine. Technology glitches. Okay, so when it comes to identity, there's 3 major points that I would like to recommend. So especially whether you're trying to be first to market or trying your best to enter an already saturated market, your message should always focus on your pain or your passion points. So your messaging should be consistent across all channels. So when I talk about pain points, you want to talk about what problem are you solving? People really respond to that. You know, like when DVR first came out, people would have never thought, you know, like nobody thinks in the future like, oh, like I want to pause things in real time. But the pain point was that people could never figure out VHSs. It was a long-running joke. That was one of the key points of marketing with TiVo when they first came out. So you're solving a problem. People really respond to that. But also a passion point. Especially, and I'll get into this later, when you talk about really creating a personal brand and being the face of your company, people buy from people that they like. People buy from people that they trust. So people want to be passionate about you. You always have to remember that this is America. We are a very sports-centric nation. You know, people want to pick a side and stick with. They want to root for you, and more importantly, they want to win with you. So especially for those of you trying to enter a saturated market, you really want to make people start with client loyalty very early on. And so both of those messages should be clear immediately. Another thing that, and this is kind of, I hope I won't get in trouble for saying this, but your product really doesn't matter. Whatever you're trying to sell doesn't matter. People are getting sold things all day long. What's really important is the story and the message. People really respond to a story. For example, with Burt's Bees, that is an incredibly saturated market, very difficult, natural, holistic, lifestyle lotions and things like that. But the story was that this woman was a single mom and she was really struggling in her job and she ended up homeless. And as a result, her and her son were living in this tent and went back to basics. And they were and so some of these stories, this has become kind of urban legend, isn't all the way true. But it doesn't matter because people really resonated with the idea of going back to basics and they wanted to support this woman. And it was an alliterative name, so it was a win-win-win. So you always want to think about your story. With Pretty Padded Room, I always mention that this is actually my second startup. And I failed at my first company, and even though I was a therapist, I was really embarrassed, and I didn't want to tell anybody that I wanted to get counseling. And I was just like, if I feel like this, how hard must it be for other people who, have even more of a stigma to overcome? And then I also tell a story, again, it's all about the story, about how I read an article about this place in Japan, and at the time you could just go in and buy plates, like square plates, purple plates, pink plates, and just break them. And I just love the idea of being able to get out that aggression like on your own time and just get over with it and get over it. And that's a way I thought about rebranding therapy, just getting ahead of your pain and dealing with it and getting on with your day. So story is very important. If you always have a story in your pocket to go to, it's easier to get an interview, it's easier to get a soundbite, it's easier to get quotes, and then you can be the go-to person in your industry. So I also say that go narrow and go deep. A lot of people try and say, just get as many clients as you can, but the truth is you only want a certain kind of client. You really want people who get you, who really like what you're doing specifically, and really will follow you where you lead them. So with Pretty Padded Room, my version of go narrow and go deep was I was a domestic violence counselor before I started the company, and I really just liked the vibe of an all-women team of therapy. And I just thought about powerful partnerships. And I just wanted it to be, and also from a market perspective, women overwhelmingly utilize therapeutic services more than men. So it just made more sense to kind of go for the girly. So I made it purple, I made it beautiful, we have a lot of squiggles on there. We made it kind of cool and big sistery. And to that point, we really wanted to target women in their 20s and 30s. And those were the women that would see this kind of marketing and identify it immediately. And so especially when I first got the idea, that was in 2009. And when I Googled what kind of people were doing this already, what the market was, there was only one company. It was very generic, and they were doing it by text chat. So, but I'm really glad that I went with this everyone said it's too boutique, it's too niche, you're only going to get one kind of client. But now there's like 5 or 6 big houses that are way more funded than me that are doing the exact same thing. But if you compare them, they're all generic. They're in competition with each other. They're not in competition with me because I created the specific market. So unless somebody else comes out with female-oriented therapy on a subscription model with affordable rates, which to this point nobody has done. So I'm kind of in a space by myself. And while I'm figuring everything out, that's a good place to be because I'm still going to get people to go to me when people want to talk about women's issues specifically. So again, I think it's really important to know exactly who your client is. I always say this because when my first startup that failed was actually when I was in grad school, I babysat a lot. And so I started a company called Me Time, and it was a social club for stay-at-home moms. And I had a brownstone, and I had an investor, and I wanted to have like on-site childcare for moms to just kind of come and take a load off and not have to worry about a babysitter. And I had an investor and everything, and then right when I graduated and right when we were ready to launch was actually 2008, and it was right when the election was starting, and it was when the bottom fell out of the recession here in Manhattan. And all the women I was targeting were the wives of all the men who had just been laid off. So we were trying to charge $500 a month when Lehman was done. All the Upper East Side was like quiet and in panic. And my investor, who was a smart, wise woman with the money and the experience, said we should probably wait. I was 25 with no money and no experience, but a lot of confidence, which is good, but it's certainly not enough. And totally tanked, just spent like 13 grand, made a bunch of mistakes, and it was just devastating. At that point, I had never really failed at anything I really wanted. But the point is that, even still, it may still not have worked because I'm not of that market. I'm not a mother. I was just going to have like cocktail sessions and things like that, but the truth is, looking back, a mom, if she has free time, is probably just going to take a nap. She's not going to want to trek to the Upper East Side and hang out with a bunch of strangers. So you have to be your market. You have to get your market. You have to know where they hang out. You have to know what they like. You have to know what they don't like, and you have to be a part of that conversation. So that's why I say definitely go narrow and go deep. So that's my 3 points of advice about identity. Excuse me. The next piece is about scalability. So, after you've made your big splash, how do you maintain the momentum? The 2 key metrics that I'd recommend are social currency and actual currency. You can go up and down about which one matters more, but more importantly should be paying attention to the behavior of social and actual currency. How often are people renewing? Why are they renewing? Why are they dropping off? Where do they disappear? Now, something like therapy, or anybody, or how many people, by the way, here are product versus service-based businesses? Product-based businesses? Okay, so mostly that. What about service-based businesses? Nobody, okay. Oh, just you? All right, you're in for it. It's very difficult because especially, it's not like a product where like if you want a bunch of cakes, you know, you can buy a ton of cakes and people always want cake, you know, but with something like a service, mowing your lawn, you know, like it's a thing that you have to continually sell somebody on, and it's very difficult to maintain. To that end, you really have to track the behavior. When does somebody buy? And with something like therapy, that's kind of a hard sell anyway to do online, people feel better. It was usually right around 3-4 months that people saw people feel better, like they were in crisis and they feel better, like they're over that guy now. And so are they going to come back? So really looking at like why they were and weren't coming back. So that's what I mean by social currency. And actual currency, while it's good to make money, you want to know where your money is coming from, and you want to know why it's going to specific products or behaviors. So for example, has anybody read The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki? Everybody should read that book. So Guy Kawasaki was one of the original founders of Apple. He has his own venture firm, and it's just a brilliant book, so no matter what you want. But he always talks about, like, what does your money mean to you? And he gave the example of this company that started some kind of, I'm always going to get this wrong, some kind of contraption that was meant to, contraption, that sounds so old. It was like this doohickey that helped track activity for plane motors. And they were going after, and their whole idea was just like, you know, if we have these plane contracts, we're going to be making like $1 million a year on every single contract. And so they just kept trying to sell to these pilots and to these airlines. And they maybe sold like 3, something very small. But what they didn't realize is that tractors and farmers and tractor companies were buying them because it did something really good. It was a really good supplemental piece of a tractor. Something like that. So rather than ignoring the actual sales and consistent sales that they were getting from this tractor place and all the farmers in America, they were still wasting years going after this plane company and airlines and the bigger contracts. So you really want to follow your money. You know, don't ignore it. Take it wherever you can get it, and then just monetize and make the most of exactly what works for you. And then be flexible. During this point in scaling, it's so important to be flexible. Listen to what the market is trying to tell you. You may want to give them cookies, but cupcakes are in right now. You know, like you might think it's bigger, but you know, now Baked by Melissa is doing huge, just little cupcakes in a very saturated market in less than 3 years' time. So really pay attention to what the money's trying to tell you.
To that point, Bea, and it's something I speak to people about a lot, using some letters just to give you a sense of how to find where the money is. You know, people know what DIY is, right? Do-it-yourselfers. And then there's also, well, people who want somebody else to do it for them, the DFMs. At both ends of the spectrum, you can make money. You know, Home Depot makes a lot of money selling DIY, and expensive cabinet makers make a lot of money doing it DFM. But in the middle, there's do it with me, and that's a place where you can really tailor what your offering is to what appeals to the market. So being flexible is a great example, I think.
Absolutely. Theory and research will only get you so far. Pay attention to actual money. That is where the power is. And for that reason, it's also kind of a mistake to want to scale too quickly. So I've definitely talked to people a lot, and they're like, it's been 1 month, it's been 1 month. The fact of the matter is, like I said, 80% of the time things will go wrong. There's always unanticipated issues. There has never been a launch in the history of ever that has not had problems. So really take your time, and you don't want too many customers. You stay in beta for as long as you can. I've definitely seen sites that have been in market for 3 years, and they still have the beta stamp because it means forgive me. You know, just like wait a second. I mean, look at healthcare.gov. Don't talk about healthcare, but you know they're having a lot of glitches right now with their website, and that's because it takes a while to get it right. Yeah. Oh, and so oh no, that's fine. What's that?
I like that. Beta means forgive me.
Yeah, please forgive me. I am a market. Oh, I already told that story. Okay, so 3, visibility. So keep in mind, and so this is once you're in market and people kind of know who you are. One of your main goals at this stage is to get in good with the influencers and industry leaders, and also to act like an influencer yourself. So many times, like you see with Marissa Mayer or Tony C, who has Zappos, or even Trump, you know, they have a personal brand in addition to their company brand. People would rather buy from people. It's just kind of like how Progressive Insurance has Flow. You know, even on their Twitter feed, it's Flo. It's not a picture of their logo or anything like that. And that's why Gecko Insurance, I mean, they're really popular, and it's really funny, but Flo always, this person that people like and trust, gets to say their message every single time in so many different funny ways, and it's the same person. And so I want to buy from Flo, and I'm going to listen to what she has to say about insurance, even if I don't care about insurance. So you always want to be on people's minds. And the best way to do that, I think, is just to really get in good with influencers. A lot of times, people will tend to follow like the New York Times and the big places that Oprah, places that they'd like to be seen. But the best thing to do is follow the journalists. They're just like anybody else. They like attention. They like people to applaud their work. And so it's really helpful if you follow them on Twitter, if they do a really fantastic job of a blog, or if it, you know, meant something to you or meant something to your industry, to tag them, you know, oh, like, fantastic work, oh my God, such good advice. Take a line out and tweet at them. People like it's so much more accessible than email. It's very unlikely that I'll respond to an email within a week from somebody I don't know. But if somebody like tweets at me or says something that they like that I did, it's just more accessible. It's 140, it's very low effort, very, very, very high value. This is how I've gotten most of my exposure. When I was in Entrepreneur Magazine, that was through Twitter. Twitter is great for getting in good with influencers. And even if you see them kind of slow down, that's really good too, because even if they're not on the make, they're always going to be pitching for you. You know, like if you're on their mind, they'll be like, oh my God, I should pitch a story about lawnmowers or, you know, lawn mowing businesses or something like that. It's really good to keep in mind with them. And also, you want to keep an eye on your competition, but also their competition. One of the things that first got us started was we were featured on this women's newsletter called Aha Life. And they featured us on, it's kind of like Groupon, I guess. They just tell you about what's cool, and it's a really curated site for women in their 20s and 30s. And the next week, Pure Wow, which is a much bigger company, saw what they did, and so they wanted to write about us. And that was way bigger, so that's where the 600 clients came from. Not from the first one, but from the next one with their competitor. So you never want to be scared of competitors, your own or anyone else's. There's something to learn there. Look, if they're getting press that you're not, follow them. Why not? Start tweeting at them. I was in, well, I wasn't in, they did an article about online therapy in women's health about a year ago. And I was just like, how did I not get included for this? I mean, Women's Health, I subscribed to them. Like, how did I get passed over for this? So I kept tweeting about it. I would tweet at Women's Health, same things. And what I started doing was going on their website and going to like certain articles. And I would post in the comment section, and my handle was Pretty Padded Room. And so I'd just say something insightful, and it was the name of my company, or I'd say something funny, and if somebody agreed with me, you know, we'd start getting a conversation. And I always kind of tried to turn it around to Pretty Padded Room. I'd always say, yeah, and that's why I feel so crazy today, because I feel fat, you know, and they're like, yeah, I love your name. It's a real thing, you should check it out. So these are real people who use my site, who are already online anyway, and will already look at it. And there's been so many other times that I've gotten press opportunities that people can even remember where they'd heard of it. But if you're even, I mean, comment sections, Twitters, that's where people actually spend their time. As opposed to a magazine, you'll get it and you'll put it down, you'll never look at it again. Getting an email passed around, a live article that's up there for a long time, that's how you stay on people's minds. So that's how you want to act like an influencer, because again, people just, especially with investors, it's always been really helpful. People have been like, I know this girl, I've heard of this girl. And if you do get a meeting with an investor, which is very hard, you have to be careful with that, you always want to have somebody who knows them. Find anybody, friend of a friend, put it out to all your network. Go on LinkedIn, have somebody vouch for you before you go into your meeting. If you're having a hard time to get a meeting, have somebody like write something for you or tweet with them and then include them on the response. I'm really big on Twitter just because, maybe not so much for getting clients, but it's really good for partnering with people and getting the kind of attention that you want. And also, when it comes to client relations, you definitely want to have them pitch for you. A lot of times I see with new entrepreneurs, especially who haven't launched, they want to be very, very private, like you were mentioning, should I pitch without a patent, or I won't talk to anybody without an NDA. That's silly. I mean, that, in my opinion, it's really silly. And I thought that the same with my first company, MeTime. I had a wealth of women at the time that I was babysitting for. You know, I maybe did one focus group, but I just didn't tell anybody. But I could have gotten a lot more information that would have saved me a lot of time and helped me make less mistakes if I would have told more people. And especially if you are going for something that's unique and solves a lot of pain points, nobody's going to do it like you can anyway. And the sooner you get to market, and if somebody wants to start something even after you do, they're going to do it. They could do it better, and especially if they have more money. You have to be the difference in that. So you really want to get to market first. And something else that I found out, and I'm not sure if this applies to products, but with services and branding specifically, with Pretty Padded Room, oh, it's gone. You know what it looks like. It's pretty. There was somebody who started a blog, prettypaddedroom.blogspot, used the exact same logo, the exact same color scheme and everything. And at this point I hadn't patented anything. After MeTime, I spent a lot of time doing documents, and this time I was like, let me just get to market. I hadn't patented anything, I hadn't trademarked anything, and so I finally contacted an IP attorney, And he's like, you know, well, actually, there's something called, just like a marriage, common law trademarks. So if you've been using it first, you can demonstrate that you've been on the market before another person, then that still applies if it ever does go to court, which again, you never want to go to court. So obviously talk to a lawyer first about certain things, but that kind of thing is in place and it is very helpful. So again, just start and you'll start making your mistakes the real way. Start making money the old-fashioned way. Don't worry about investors, just fix and polish your product so it's ready. Acting like oh, and how to talk. Once you do get visible, and after you make your splash, and after you start getting some traction, things do slow down. That's just the nature of the business. You can't be the hot story every 3 months. But what you want to do instead when you talk about your startup is always have a milestone in your pocket. So one thing that I always like to do at the beginning, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know what, you know, it's really stalled out, like we're only getting 100 clients a month or whatever it was. You know, always be positive. People want to know that you're growing because again, people want to root for you. People want to see you win. So if you always have something, especially when you talk to other influencers and people in your market, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, we doubled our clients last month, or oh yeah, I'm going to be doing this next month, but it won't be out. You know, oh, I'm working on a contract with 1-800-therapist. Things like that keep people excited. So that when there is another trend piece about whatever you're doing, they're going to keep you in mind. They'll say this is a mover and shaker in the business because everybody knows that there's highs and lows. So always have a milestone in mind in your pocket to tell somebody about it or be working on one. There's no point because let me tell you, even with Shark Tank, one press release does not does not guarantee consistent profits. After being on the show, because it was such a traumatic experience, I found out there was, it's like not a support group, it's just a Facebook group, but it's called Shark Tank. Well, it's a private group. So only people who have been on Shark Tank and actually air can be in it. So you have to be involved in everything.
Wait, did you see a bump in your business after Shark Tank?
Of course, yeah, of course. But also, I still didn't have like a full-time engineer, so we had a lot of trouble, a lot of code broke. But yeah, of course, we had, I think on that Friday, there was like 33,000 people to the site, and then it stayed with that, and it trickled for about like a month and a half after that.
Up from what? It was 33,000 up from what?
I don't know, maybe 1,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it was huge. It was huge. And the site didn't crash, but it was a lot. I mean, I probably didn't catch up on emails or anything till almost April. So it was a really big bump for the business for sure. But again, it was just me, well, Meg at the time, so just couldn't handle a lot of it. But the whole point of that, what was I saying? Oh, Shark Tank.
Facebook.
Facebook. So there are people who have been on season 1 of Shark Tank who are still hung up on Shark Tank. They will go to trade shows and it says as seen on Shark Tank. There's a guy called Rob Merlino who does the Shark Tank blog, and he does these really popular recaps, and now it's his full-time job. And he told me that when it came time to do my blog, he could not find me. Because everybody else was like, hey, I'm going to be on Shark Tank. Everybody was tweeting about it or Facebooking it or putting out press releases. I didn't know how it was going to be edited. I remembered it was the worst day of my life, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I just wanted to hide, and maybe nobody would notice. So I didn't tell anybody. And he's like, yeah, like everybody else talks about it. I mean, I've seen people who to this day, I mean, and again, a lot of those deals don't work out. I could tell you stories about what really goes on with Shark Tank with people who do and don't get deals. But you don't want to hang your hat on one thing because it needs to be about you and what you're doing, not about what somebody else did for you. People really want to trust your power, not like a star maker. Because even the people, I remember there's one woman, I'll go ahead and tell. Do y'all watch Shark Tank religiously? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Well, I'm sorry to bore you with that re-airing. But season 2, there was a woman called Shelly Hefner, and she had the show no towel. Do you remember that one? And she's put the show no towel. It was a towel that had like a hole in it.
For the kids.
For kids to walk around water parks and change their swimsuits underneath. And she was a really hard-working woman. She had a montage. It takes a lot to get a montage, by the way. They're very selective with who they choose to get a little kind of intro clip. And not only, so she got on there, and it was the episode with Lori, who's a QVC woman. I should not be, I'm sure it doesn't matter, it's not my story. But, and it was years ago. So she was the one who, and they show this in commercials to this day, like, you remind me so much of myself, I'm going to write you a check right now. And she wrote her a check for $50,000, and they made this deal, supposedly, and she gives her the check, and there's tears, and there's hugging, and the very next day, because you're in a hotel, what's her name, Lori's assistant, writes Sherry, and is just like, please don't cash that check. She's like, that's a problem, just don't cash that check. And that's the thing, even though you go into the show and you think it's going to be a meeting, and again, I do believe that the sharks don't know much about you before you go in, but it takes a lot to get on that show, and there's several weeks of casting, and the producers know everything about you. And I think they kind of create a story, like why would Lori happen to have a checkbook on her that day? You know, so I think they create a story. It's a TV show, but you don't know that, and you're not a part of the proceedings. So what happened was that, so Sherry was just thinking, okay, maybe it was just part of the show. After that, there was no follow-up. It wasn't until the show was about to air that she contacted her, and she's like, okay, how's things going? because she was hoping that this deal would still work out, she didn't seek out additional investors, and then even after the show aired and she still didn't get any promotions, it was hard for her to get investments because people assumed that, wow, you had all this money and you had this QVC woman backing you. How come you still aren't getting it done? It was, I mean, to this day, she's still in a lot of pain on it. She's actually the one who started the group about it. Like 2 years later, she's still suffering. And
Is she a client of yours?
No, kind of. Or it's like a group therapy thing.
Well, that's confidential.
Yeah, exactly. But so again, she's still really suffering over it, and she had that Disney contract on her own. So when she got it, and if you remember, they did a follow-up on Cherry, and that was the first time she'd even heard or talked to Lori since she taped the show. And again, this could be a year ago. I taped a year ago, and there's been 2 re-airings of my episode. So she got the order with Disney. They sold out. For whatever reason, Disney did not do a reorder. Sherry tried to follow up with Lori. Was like, is there any way like we could, talk to Disney again? They sold out. I don't know what happened. Lori finally wrote her back and was like, you are the most ungrateful person I have ever worked with.
Really?
Really, that happened. And to this day, Sherry is still holding out hope that she's going to honor her commitment. To this day, when she goes on, she's been on GMA, Good Morning America. She never says, she never outed Lori and tells people what really happened, but she still hopes and she still thinks Lori's going to make good on this deal.
Well, I heard that on Shark Tank that at the end, people will spout all these numbers. I'm doing these sales and all that,
Right.
and they'll make a deal. But afterwards, their team, whoever makes the deal, will go through the numbers to see if they're actually true.
That's not true either.
That's not true.
No, you have to get. They went into my bank account.
Interesting.
Before I went on. I mean, all these things again. Like these, there's no way they would have let me on. You have coaches for weeks. I had 11 versions of my pitch. You have coaches for weeks. They were the ones who said, "Don't say baby, don't say this, don't do that." They tell you you practice with them. What if they ask you this? What are you gonna do? It's not true. Like they always. I think they try and make it look like the entrepreneurs, but again, it is the sharks' real money. And they've also invested in things that don't work out, and they haven't gotten their money back. So again, they may have very intention of making a TV show and making a great emotional moment, but maybe they have no interest in investing.
Did you go to a big audition with a lot of people there?
No, I just applied online.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I got cast after casting closed. It was actually my mentor recommended. I've never seen an episode of Shark Tank before. I thought it was Donnie Deutsch's show. And I sent in, my mentor told me to apply because they were looking for younger people, and I applied. And a woman contacted me the next day, and she's like, "We really love it, but there was an outside casting company." She's like, this office and this email is going to be shut down after tomorrow, so just fill out this huge Bible of but you can't follow up with me. Just send it in. So I filled it out. I had so many questions. I didn't even know if they had received it. So even after casting closed, I was still cast. So I just applied the old-fashioned way. But again, I didn't even know I was getting on the show until somebody bought my ticket. My producers couldn't tell me whether or not I made the cut. So it's a very, people think that it's not the entrepreneur's fault. Yes.
Is there a percentage that you have to pay just to even sign up?
No, well they say that, and they have not honored that. As far as I know, there's only been 2 companies that ever do that. And again, it's always weird to me how people get really hung up on that part, because if they own 5%.
Can you explain that for some
Okay,
people?
so when you first sign up to Shark Tank, I think ABC is owned by Sony, and then Sony is owned by Disney. There's a lot of people who want a piece of the pie. So when you apply, you have to sign off. And again, if you don't sign everything, you don't get on the show. That's it. You can have all the attorneys you want to look at if you want. But so they say that you're going to give 3% to Disney and 2% to Sony. I forget what it is. And that's just a requirement of being on the show. In addition to lots of other things, you can't sue for being embarrassed and heartbroken. For example, that's when they're like, okay.
3% of your yearly sales?
3% of the business. So what that means, and again, it's
If you get a deal.
no, period, for being on the show.
So they get it no matter what?
No, here's the thing. Nobody has ever got, that never happened to me. First of all, most people that go on don't have any sales or don't have enough. There's 3% of what? Again, even if your profits, it's not like you're paying somebody. And even with, you know about startups and IPOs and with Twitter, you don't get 5% of anything until it goes public. So if you're an LLC, they get 5%. To my knowledge, the only person who's ever given up was Talbot Teas. And again, that's another deal that they got on their own. Talbot Teas was their own thing, and then they sold to Jamba Juice. And I think they got 5% of that deal, but that was a huge deal. They've gone public. They had stock things. So again, 5% only matters if you go public. If you stay in LLC forever, you never have to pay Sony anything. And either way,
they don't become a partner of the LLC.
Yeah, there's no stock option. You have to do a cap table like that. Yes. That's not what it means. I always get confused when people you're not making money anyway.
So how long were you actually there in the studio? They edited it down a lot, but how long were you actually?
I was on stage 40 minutes, something like that.
Don't you
but
have
you're
to go
there
on
for
there
a whole week.
sit there for 5, 7, 6
Yeah,
seconds?
my call time was 6:30. but I didn't actually go to tape until like after lunch, like 1. And it was weird too, because everybody got deals that morning, because we're all just kind of sitting in the same room, and you can hear people like, yay! And so my friend Romy and I were still very close. We both didn't get deals. We're like, God, we really should have gone before lunch. Like, I don't know if they were sleepy or cranky, but a lot of people after lunch said, well, the Mets and more guys did, so whatever.
You know, they seemed like there was an agenda there. I don't know how much of it was a produced agenda to make, you know, kind of play up the fact that you were a little shaky on the numbers and so forth.
I wasn't shaky on the numbers.
Well, but that was the effect that was created.
I was up there for 40 minutes, and that was 6 minutes.
Right. Well, I'm saying though that my son was on MTV True Life, and they filmed for 6 weeks, and then they did it down to 20 minutes.
Right.
And
So
they had an agenda.
Right.
He's, you know, the
They wanted
genius
to
nerd.
sure.
So, and we saw how that came out and how manipulated he was. So I it's kind of.
Right, but also
I
I
mean,
don't
your
think,
impression of that.
I really don't think
To you.
that they're intending, because I know that they have an idea of how they think it might go. Like for example, on my episode, they had Carmen, who had what was it called? Some more, give me some more. Smuffins, that was her company, and it was s'more muffins. You know, I personally think she got set up. And I actually think that that's what was happening to me during my episode. Because you see sometimes they have a joke business, like the man candle or a fart candle or like another like hoodie kind of thing. And it's just like, it's like American Idol. They like to show the people who can't sing as well. So I definitely think they mix it up. Like I don't think there's anything proprietary about Smuffin. Carmen is lovely and she does tons and tons of sales. But her shipping rates were where they were. And she was very bubbly and blonde. And they had a really great line that they use in the commercials that say, you must be Smuffin crazy. So I think they have an idea in mind for certain stories, and I know for a fact with me, my producers kept telling me, you know, like you really can't tell when you first meet you what it's going to be like. You know, you smile a lot, you like tight dresses, you know, and so they were like, but when you start talking, you know what you're talking about. I think they wanted me to be like the brilliant bimbo kind of thing, you know, but again, you don't know what's going to happen until you get out there. You know, and so they even stopped my taping because, again, there were parts of that episode that were taped after it was shot. Like, when you see me go like, oh my God, he didn't say you can't defend your numbers when you're ignorant. What he said to me, he goes, you sound ignorant. He goes, you really do. The producers stopped, they were like, okay. And then you see where Kevin O'Leary says something like, oh, you can get credential therapy for discount rates. What he actually said to me real therapists charge $300 an hour, so your therapist must be low end. And that was one of the first things, and I was immediately like, oh, okay, I'm the joke business. I was so caught off guard because I said, first of all, I signed up for this myself. My team, some of those women have been with me from the very beginning, so they didn't sign up for this. You're not going to call them low end, and that became a theme. And like, so again, once you're in taping, it can go. One point can really drag it down. With Carmen, who did Smuffins, the whole thing was about her shipping. She'd done like $1 million in sales by that time. Another friend of mine, Sybeth, she had also done $1 million in sales the year before. You know, so you can say it's about numbers or not, but there are people with actual numbers who don't get deals. They also invest in cupcakes. Another thing they said to me was that it was no big deal. There's plenty of online therapy companies. I said, name one. I said, name two. I said, I know who all my competitors are, and they're not doing what I'm doing. They haven't gotten the traction in the press that I've done on my own. And I told them, I've done it myself, like, and I'm doing my best. But, you know, again, that doesn't make it. So, you know, again, like, you don't know, it's a show. You know, you don't know what's going to happen until you go in. So just, don't think. Yes. Yeah, okay.
So why'd you do it?
Because I needed money. What do you mean? I needed money. I was working full time, and then I quit because I was getting.
You genuinely thought there would be money at the end.
I did, of course. I didn't know everything I know now.
Why do you play the lottery?
Yeah.
You think you're going to win?
Don't.
Why do people play the lottery?
I wanted money, and I also needed a partner.
Because I want to win.
Would you do it again?
Yeah. Probably. Again, going into it, like, it's funny because you're surrounded by entrepreneurs, your coaches are really, like, they're literally, you're standing here in this, like, box before you go on, and your producers are like, go get her, you're gonna kill it! You know, and for a whole week, you're with other entrepreneurs, and you know how we are, we're just so supportive, and everyone's like, oh my God, they're gonna love you so much. So, literally, up until the moment that you walk out, you're thinking, this is gonna be cake, they're gonna love me. And you walk out, and, and you hit your mark, and they're like, you are a waste of my time. They actually, Kevin O'Leary actually said that to me, and the producers told him to stop right there. I mean, that happened. That's a thing that happened.
Is he really that mean?
He was like cartoonishly evil. He was like he was like Mr. Burns. It was unbelievable. After a while, I couldn't
Mr.
even.
Burns.
I couldn't even take it seriously.
Just to follow up though, I was just asking if you felt misled. The reason why I thought, did you really think you get money? Did you feel misled?
I do, and again, I know that I certainly made some mistakes. Like there was things that I kind of overcomplicated, like breaking down with the price. But that's time I could have been sticking on my message. You know, I was like, well, it's 16 for this, and da da da. Just have bites, things like that. You know, I should have just said that I didn't have a tech founder. I should have said that from the get-go. I never got to say what I needed the money for, which would explain. But I also didn't want them to know that I had buggy code. So again, I should have stuck to my message. I should have had answers ready right away. But again, you can't predict how it's gonna go. So I mean, I wasn't able to say what I wanted to. So yeah, sure.
There's a cable show that is about this. Has that helped your business at all? Since that
Who?
There's a cable TV show about online therapy.
Oh, web therapy.
Yeah, web therapy.
It's not real though. It's Lisa Kudrow. Yeah.
She's terrific.
Yeah, she's great at it. I think she's great for what we do too. I mean, people do it. You know, people get therapy. She's ridiculous, but yeah.
I mean, I never knew that until I saw that.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think it's on the air anymore, but it's good.
You mentioned that you shouldn't rely on one thing. You don't want to rely too much on that borrowed interest that you were on Shark Tank and that makes you successful. What would you suggest is another avenue that you've gone down that is helping to make you successful?
I would just say, again, staying in touch with press. I mean, that's the main, I've never spent a dime on SEO. I've never spent a dime on PR. It's all been word of mouth and getting in these other people who want to endorse me. You know, getting vouched for it is really, really, really helpful. So Entrepreneur Magazine saying that, you know, here's a good girl, here's a good concept, she knows what she's doing. You know, being a Marie Claire, being like, this is a really cool thing that we think would be great for our readers. I've done in-person events too, going out and meeting people. You know, again, like you're just a faceless company until you connect directly with at least one client. So I would definitely say, like, stay on people's minds. You know, my friends always tell me I've never been able to celebrate any big press that we've gotten because I'm always like, no, that's going to be out, and then like, what's going to happen 3 months from now? So you always have to be constantly working on your next angle.
Have your sales met your projections?
Yeah, more than that, way more than that. We're doing several thousands each month. I never, and this is, yeah, and because I was so cheap for so long, and I had to borrow, like, to pay money on certain things. You know, I never hired just because we had more money. I still have 2 part-time employees. The therapists I used at the time, I think I had 7 therapists. Now I have 12. You know, and I still want to make sure their packets are fat. So I don't hire until everybody has a full caseload. So I'm still super cheap. Stay cheap. You know, don't spend money on it.
Can I ask a follow-up on the social media and the Twitter and what have you? I launched about a month ago and felt the pull and the power of those mediums. How much time do you give? Like, do you structure your day? Because I was like, whoa, I could get lost in this and not get the rest of my tasks that I need to do today.
Hire somebody else to do Twitter at first, for sure, because there's an art to it. You know, like when you're starting, only do things that you're good at doing. You know, everyone tells you to blog all the time, but you know, like if you're not good at blogging, it'll take you like a full day to try and you know, get a good blog, and it might not even be that good. So only do, and eventually that's how your company, once it's, you know, multi-million dollars, hopefully, will run. You will only be doing that things that only you can do. So if there's somebody better, defer to the experts, you know, like, I mean, it's a, you know, a freelance economy now. Get on Craigslist, hire a blogger who has good SEO stuff, and, you know, all the time, the 6 months it'll take for you to figure out how Twitter works, it'll take them 6 days. I mean, so that's what, I hired a company called Ghost Tweeting, and they just kind of laid the foundation for me. I think it was like, and they were across all 4 channels. They did LinkedIn, they did Facebook, they did Pinterest, you know, and they kind of like set the map, and I just watched what they did, and then I did that.
But are they getting the journalists for you? That sounds like it's your intuition, who to follow, who to comment.
Well, the journals and stuff came before. Again, that was, once you get the first one, you can start working it on your own. And again, have different ways to tell the story. Like, again, don't be really private about what you're doing, because that, when people pitch it back to you, that's how you know how to talk about it. Like, you can have the way you want to present it. Like I say, it's online therapy on your own time, on your own terms. And somebody was, when I got to telling more about them, they were like, oh, so it's kind of like therapy light. And I'm like, yes, that. You know, they're like, oh, it sounds like if I've had a bad day. I'm like, also good, you know. So again, like, they always say Bill Clinton was really great at that. You never got tired of listening to, because they'd say the same thing a million different ways. You know, so just tell everybody about it, and people will, and you want to hear what people are talking about it, and that's how you want to talk about it. Not in business speak, but in like how people are going to actually talk about it. Yes.
Do you advertise online?
No, no ad sales. I did Facebook, a Facebook pay-per-click, and I got 0 results for it from it, none. So, and my market is always on Facebook, but people have been trained to kind of block that out. That's why they moved it in the middle of Facebook. So, no. Yes.
Hi, 2 questions. One, I want to comment you on your overall positivity. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Because that was a pretty tough.
It was the worst day of my life. I was trying to think of a joke about it because I always tell people, I'm like, oh, it was the worst day of my life, and and I've had gallbladder surgery or something like that. But like when with my friends, I tell it a really gross way, so I couldn't figure out a PG-13 ways.
So 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
One, how do you find your therapist? I'm curious about that. And 2, how do you deal with the whole doctor-patient confidentiality? I know this is probably more about the way you run your business. I'm just curious how it works. I'm curious if folks, if people tell you, or people tell your therapist something really confidential and
it's
on
all
the internet,
confidential.
and how does that all kind of work out?
So, good question, first of all. How I get my therapist, first of all, is since I started doing it, again, like I said, when I first started as a domestic violence counselor, I went to Columbia, I speak 3 languages, I still was only getting paid $38,000. So most therapists don't get paid that much at all. So it was sticky on both sides of the market. There was a big reception because even though our rates are a lot lower, like $200 a month versus $200 a session, it's a sales job like anything else. You'll see, it's very hard to get consistent sales. So when you have your private practice, you're not going to start charging $200 a day, and people start and stop. So it's that when people saw what we were doing, people wanted to be affiliated. They're like, if you can get the clients for me and I just do what I'm good at, again, just do what you're good at and have somebody else do. So they were great. I was also profiled by the American Counseling Association. They called me innovative and inspiring. So so that was good too. So again, so people will find out about you in that ways. And again, I was always talking to people who were in the business. 1-800-THERAPIST, Psychology Today, we were posted on. Be on a lot of, and again, that helps naturally with SEO. Sign up for every directory that might have, Yahoo directories that might have anything to do with your field. Directories they pay a lot of money. Let them do it for you. They pay a lot of money to be first in the SEO rankings. So get listed with them, and have special, like if you want to just do body image or whatever it is. So that's how I've handled my organic SEO. As far as confidentiality, that's why the site has been so expensive to build. There's actually 3 different portals. There's a user portal, there's a therapist portal, and again, there's 12 of them now, and then there's the admin portal. There's several layers of encryption, and also we do, I can only see messages that they send to each other, but I can't see a therapist correspondence. That's called personal health information. We are HIPAA compliant, so it's EPHI, so we legally I can't have access to it unless I'm their supervisor. And because we don't take insurance, and because I don't list myself as a clinical group practice, we are basically a virtual office, I can't have access to any of those records, but it's super duper encrypted. Of course, that being said, lots of things get hacked. The president's BlackBerry was hacked, so if somebody really wants it, they get it, but we take every precaution too. And we also encourage our clients to, limit certain things. The therapist only lists a little bit, and that's just so I can see as far as quality assurance and client control, what's going on. And also, they're reminded every few months or so to delete things that they don't want on there. They can copy and paste it and keep it in there. Some of our clients really like it because they can go on the site and leave it there. For instance, if they have somebody who's a Snoopy boyfriend and they don't want to know, he might go through her emails, but he's not going to go through her Pretty Padded Room account. So yeah, so you do your best. You pay a lot of money for stuff like that, but don't get scammed. Sometimes there's a lot of SaaS products that are like, oh yeah, we give you extra protection. Anything can be hacked. Anything can be hacked anytime. Just do your best. Have somebody write a lot of script. Really hire an excellent coder for that. So I don't know how many of you have startups, but okay.
I have a question.
Of course you do.
A lot of questions.
That's it.
I'm in a service business also. I'm a dentist. Oh. So I'm limited by the amount of people I can see in a day. But do you find that that's a problem in your business because you're limited in your income by the amount of time you have? In other words, you could sell 1 million pieces of a doodad, and that wouldn't be it. So you're in a service product, so I run into that problem. So how do you solve that problem?
Yeah, well that's actually why I started Pretty Padded Room, because after I left social work to do my private practice, I was like, even if I see 12 people a day, I'm still not gonna, make as much as I could make. So with Pretty Padded Room, I don't do any counseling. I still have my private practice for the kind of clients that I like to work with, people I've been with for a long time. But it's a way of scaling. Hire people. You need to be. I used to say, it's terrible. I don't say it anymore. But I used to say I was a therapy pimp. And I just give them the goods, and the girls just do, the girls just do what they're good at. So that's terrible. I'm sorry. They're all really smart, brilliant. I have 2 doctors on staff. But
we're being videotaped.
I know. I never said that. What should I say that I said instead? I used to say I was a therapy. I don't know. I'm sorry. But
the concept of what you did with Pretty Padded Room is you scale
it. You scale it. You have you hire a bunch of people. You become a network. Like LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn isn't a good example because they don't make a lot of money. But most of those referral services just got a lot of people. And again, we're developing a sister site right now where I'll just pay because sometimes we get so many requests to work for us that people, we can't hire everybody. So what I've noticed is I just want to have a SaaS product, an enterprise edition, and people will just use the virtual office and they can set their price, but I'll have consistent 6 to 12 month contracts for a higher rate. And again, you don't, less effort for high value. You know, you want to try and make it service as a product. That's the goal. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking forever.
Oh, very good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Patrick?
Have you ever considered or getting people to take or do therapy sessions with the telephone?
Yeah, but we don't recommend it because, again, when people go through the site, it's really important to track your analytics, how people are using it, things like that. Especially with something like therapy, people kind of just go on. It's not good for the therapist, you know, like to take advantage of the time because it's all about, you know, getting as much as we can in. But some people do, like if the only time they have to talk, if they're out of the house or if they're commuting is on the phone, then we'll do it. But really stay away from that. We do our best not to just keep it, to use it the way it was meant to be used.
I have a question. You mentioned about before you patented anything and trademarking, I think you know the name, trademark. What have you patented regarding the site?
I only recently patented, because you can't patent therapy, you can't patent talking to somebody. So, and you'll find that too, even if you have a product, somebody's already done it. There's tons of patent trolls. It's just like with websites. People will just think of websites names and buy them up before somebody else can, and then they'll like sue you and try to charge you $10,000. So, what I did patent after somebody else used our name was I patented Pretty Padded Room. And again, in my market, trademarked, sorry, I trademarked Pretty Padded Room, and in my market, I'm the only one that offers written consultations, and we call that the digital diary, and it's interactive, secure messaging service. You can't really patent trademark emailing, but we trademarked digital diary, the term, as a PAS, as, you know, platform as a service. So if anybody else tries to get into it, again, we're still the only people that use it, and it's by far our most popular options. Digital diary can only be used by us for this particular
So the
service.
phrase you trademarked digital diary.
Yeah.
Did you patent the process of how you go about building that digital diary? So you have no patents.
Well,
You're talking about
no,
your
no
IP.
patents.
Okay.
No patents. But so if somebody wanted to call it also a digital diary, and you know, so but again, it's branding. You know, digital diary is sexy. Written consultations is not as sexy.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll ask that question again after hearing Bea speak. How many of you would go on Shark Tank to help?
No
Why
way.
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I mean, literally. I mean, you can't
Yeah,
pay
why
for
would
that kind of.
why wouldn't you?
Even if you did do 5%,
Well, like
you
I
can't
said,
pay for that kind of exposure.
You know, giving up 5% of nothing is going to cost me nothing.
So you would go on
Oh,
yourself?
absolutely.
And even if you did have to give up 5%, can you imagine how much it would pay over time to get like that much SEO, that much marketing? Like you'd have to pay somebody $100,000 if you're nobody, and even then you're not guaranteed it. So if it costs you $100,000, who cares?
Here's a question though, because you said you didn't know until the very end that you would be on.
Yeah.
So if you didn't get on, how much of a distraction would that have been from you implementing or executing on your day-to-day business?
I actually told them that I didn't, because they tape a lot, and there's actually, they only air, they say, about 70% of what they tape. So there's people who tape and it doesn't even go to air, or they'll save it for the next season. Actually, they can't do that because they all wear the same outfits day after day after day to make it look like the same episode. But I actually asked them after I left because I was destroyed. I mean, my producers came in, they were like, wow, my male producer punched a wall. He just couldn't believe it. He's like, you know, he's like, I don't know what happened. And there's a therapist, because you're not supposed to tell anybody. And, you know, so a therapist, even if you win, comes in and talks to you. And I was distraught. Like I always say, if I was awake or alone for the next month, I was crying. It was, I mean, like this, you know, because I was doing it myself, I still had to work. You know, like, and also you have to pay for everything yourself. Those cutouts, they wanted me to have like a couch, like, so they were like, oh, if there's interaction, it'll be in the commercials. They were like, you'll have to pay for yourself, you'll have to move it yourself. I was in New York, you know, I'm here, they tape in LA. I'm like, can someone, isn't there like a union guy? They're like, no, because a union,
Well, who set up that
can't.
set with the thing?
They set up the set, but even the sound, I went to B&H like 4 different times looking for little speakers. They're like, oh, that's not good, we want you to press a button. You know, finally I was like, can I speak to an audio person? Because this is not, you know, like they keep telling you, you need to own this presentation. You know, you have to pay for everything. Like I said, I was in Entrepreneur Magazine the month before. That was our highest sales, and I spent all of it to get to California and to do that presentation.
So when someone comes on, let's say they have a product like cosmetic stuff, that's all set up. That has to be all set up before they
set
actually
it up,
walk
but you
in.
pay for it. You pay for the banners, you pay for the...
No, but the sharks already see that stuff. They
Yeah, it's
kind of
out
know
there.
what's
So you
going
come
on
out,
before you walk
they're
in.
sitting there, you come out, and you look at it, you know, you dust something off, you go, no, let's do this here. But you also practice. There's a dress rehearsal with not the sharks. So, and then you go back to this little holding cell, and then you walk out.
That sounds like a pain in the ass.
It's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
So we're going to take a quick 5 to 10 minute break. Come on back, and then we'll do our pitching panel without the drama.
That was quick. You know, I go to
We're all
the
high.
Detroit.